Hi, this is Anna Horford, and you're listening to Horford Happy Hour. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Horford Happy Hour. This week we're talking life advice and regrets. So I reached out to people of different backgrounds, different ages, different walks of life, and I asked them 3 very important questions, just hoping that they could provide some insight. And I really wanted to do an episode that people could listen to and just really take away from and possibly, learn from. So the 3 questions are: what's the best advice you've ever received? What's your biggest regret in life? And what's something you wish you knew when you were younger? So I know these are kind of deep questions and a little bit tricky, so I did give everyone a little bit of time to really think about their answers, and I wanted honesty, and I was just really curious in general about what people would have to say about these questions, and I think that, it could help a lot of people out there. So let's get started. But before we jump into things, the wine this week is called Drops of Jupiter, and it's a red wine, and yes, it is named after the song by the band Train, and the lead singer of the band collaborated with a winemaker, and they made this wine, and it's super affordable and surprisingly good. Like, I would actually recommend this wine. So if you like red wine, I would definitely go out and give it a try. So, all right, let's get to our first person, and that is actually my brother, John Horford, who is a G League player for the Grand Rapids Drive, and you can find him on Twitter and Instagram at Blueprint Athletes, which is his basketball training app. And for the first question, what's the best advice you've ever received? John said, "If you want to change the world, change yourself." What's your biggest regret in life? I cared too much about what people thought of me when I was younger, and I wish I had the mentality I have now then. And finally, what's something you wish you knew when you were younger? He said, the way people treat you is more of a reflection of themselves than it is about you. So those are some pretty, quick and not necessarily simple, but brief answers. And I think all of those are true, and they may be a little underrated in a way. So definitely some good stuff right there. And now we're on to Mike Rena, who is an artist and contributor for Palace of Pistons and SB Cross Culture. And you can find both of those accounts on Twitter. And he's just Mike Rena with 2 eyes on Instagram. And his work is actually really awesome, so definitely check it out. So he said, the best advice I've ever gotten is that love is more important than money. I can't actually think of who said that to me first or when it was most poignant, but it was instilled in me by my family. We all need money, but I think being able to go after what you love first is more important. Monetary greed is like a cancer on society. And also respect your elders, just saying. My biggest regret in life is not making it in time when my mom passed away. We were always in frequent contact, and I had just visited her, but my brother and I, didn't make it in time on that day, and she died without us. That's really hard to type. The one thing I wish I knew when I was young and jerky that I know now is that everybody is struggling. That shitty clerk at the store or the crabby waiter, whomever it is. My oldest kid once said to me, she thinks it's important to remember when interacting with someone that they don't know what you're dealing with. So it's not cool to just lash out randomly. I told her, more importantly, those people are going through something too. They might need some kindness. To me, it's more important to remember that than the fact they don't know what you're dealing with. I would have been a much better person sooner in my life if I could have stepped outside my own selfishness like that at a younger age. We're on to Jean Lavasser, who's a longtime family friend. She said, my dad taught more by example than by giving advice. He taught me to stick by your principles no matter what it costs you, to always do your best, and to finish what you start. My biggest regret is not understanding that a parent's job is to support your child's growth on the path they chose, rather than to mold them into what you think is best for them. I wish I had just sat back more often and watched in amazement at the human being that my child was becoming. My biggest regret is not trying harder to work on some relationships that became difficult. I walked away a few times when maybe I should have made a greater effort to work through conflict. I'm not talking about staying in a toxic friendship or an abusive relationship, but gaining more experience and tools in being able to work through conflict. It is a more important skill to acquire than I thought. Cutting bait in the hard times that will always come is the easy way out. At the age of 67, I wish I had tried to work through the hard times and had seen the value in working through a challenging time with a friend or partner. Josue is up next. So he's a friend, and he's been on Horford Happy Hour quite a few times. He's also the co-host of the Causeway Street podcast and a Celtics reporter for CLNS Media. You can find him on Twitter at Josue. He said, "My dad once told me, when you really want something, you go after it, and don't stop until you get it. And I can see that in you. Don't ever lose that. Don't ever stop chasing your dreams, your goals. This is your life, and no one is going to give you anything. You have to fight for what you want. No one is going to knock on your door with opportunities. It's all up to you to chase it. And you have everything you need to do whatever you want in life. Don't forget that." He said his biggest regret was, "I had a chance to study abroad in Spain for a semester and chickened out. I was 19 and ready to do it, excited to do it, but was in a relationship with a girl who I didn't want to leave for a semester. The reason pisses me off more than anything, but I was still a teen and I didn't know any better. In retrospect, that was a big L for me. I like to think that I don't have any regrets. Everything happens for a reason. I believe in that, but if I had to choose one, that's it." He also said, "I wish I told my 21-year-old self to know exactly what you want after college and go after it. Don't waste a lot of time. It was an awkward time for me right after college, and I sort of took time off and enjoyed life, which was great, but it derailed me a bit. I worked in a marketing department, then I was a radio producer, when deep down I knew I wanted to be a sports journalist and reporter, but didn't take the steps in that direction until a few years removed from college. Looking back on it, I think fear had a lot to do with it, and being dishonest with myself. But eventually I refocused. Still, I wish I did it sooner, but some people never go after what they truly want in life, so I guess I'm doing all right. But that's the number one thing I wish I could tell my younger self, definitely." Next up is Carrie, who is another friend, and you can find her on Instagram and Twitter at Carrie Catherine. Carrie with a C and Catherine with a K. She's a strong, badass lady who happens to be Mike Rena's wife. So her best advice, I thought this one was really funny, was to always wash your hands. Always. Because other people do not. And that's definitely something that I didn't think I would get this episode, but I did, and I appreciate it because it's true, and a lot of people don't, and that's gross. So everyone should try to make that effort for sure. She said her biggest regret was allowing hurt feelings and resentment to ruin one of the best relationships I've ever had with someone. That person died, and I wasn't there for them when they wanted me there in those final moments of life. My biggest regret so far was not being there to make amends and say goodbye. It's the most foolish thing I've ever done. To this day, it still makes me cry when I think about it. I learned a life lesson from it for sure. Something I wish I knew when I was younger. Not everyone is good-hearted. There's some punk-ass bitches out there. They don't have your back. They will lie to you. They will tell you that you suck. Instead of believing them, give zero fucks and tell them to fuck off. Good-natured people are rare on this planet. Recognize the difference as quickly as possible. And we're on to Kylie, who's one of my really good friends, and she joined me for the Bar Do's and Don'ts episode a couple of weeks ago. She said, "The best advice I ever received was actually super cliche and from a therapist, but he reminded me over and over again that your 20s are for exploring yourself and fucking up, and that it's okay if you don't have your shit together. I think especially among millennials, the pressure to have this perfect life where you have a career, money to blow on trips, a serious relationship, etc., when in reality, most of us are young, kind of broke, and a little lost. I felt so much pressure to conform and pursue things that I didn't enjoy just to fulfill all these expectations I thought existed. You owe it to yourself to find what makes you happy, and you don't have to feel guilty about it." She also said, "My biggest regret is that it took me so long to let the above advice sink in. I'm working towards things that make me happy now, but I wish I would have accepted the validity of my own aspirations sooner. And I wish my younger self would have focused more on the things in life I felt called to, rather than choosing a path just because it was what I thought I was supposed to do." Up next is my grandma Barb and my grandpa. They kind of did this together, and they're both hardworking dairy farmers who are honestly the best grandparents anyone could ever ask for. And so this was their advice: never give up, follow your heart and your dreams, and a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. And I actually just learned what that meant not too long ago. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard that saying before. And she also went on to say, I really don't have any regrets. Learn from your mistakes and always do the best you can. And life is too short to worry about the things you can't change. Enjoy what you have and always be proud of yourself, family, and friends. Next up is Charlotte Wilder. You may know her from Twitter. She's a senior writer for Sports Illustrated, and you can find her at The Wilder Things. So, the best advice I've ever gotten is to trust my instincts. I don't know if it's so much advice as it is just the way my parents raised me, but I was super lucky to have a family that believed in me and my abilities to the point where I could believe in myself. There have been a lot of times where my friends have taken different paths that I have, or I've been pressured by people in my life to go in a different direction that didn't feel quite right, but I've always come back to that basic idea from my mom and dad that I should trust my gut and do what I think is best for me and for those around me. And I always have, after coming back to the core questions of what do I want and what do I think is possible, even if it seems like a moonshot, and what's best for the greater world around me. So far, it's worked out. It's allowed me to dream big and to work towards making it all happen. And also something my dad used to say, which is a quote from someone, but I can't remember who: most people miss opportunity because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work, which meant, sure, you can be talented and lucky, but you've also got to work your ass off. As far as her biggest regret in life, she said, I wish I'd stood up for myself more in my early 20s in both jobs and relationships. I'm very confident now, but I wish I'd realized my self-worth earlier. I let some bosses get away with treating me in ways I'd never be okay with now, and I stayed in some bad relationships longer than I should have. Ultimately, I always came back to trust your instincts, but sometimes it took me longer than it would now to realize exactly what it is those instincts were telling me to do. I guess that's called living and learning, but I wish I'd believed sooner that what I want and need is just as valid as what someone else wants and needs. I naturally want to please people, and it's taken me some time to grow thicker skin and realize not only that I can't all of the time, but that I shouldn't. And something she wishes she knew when she was younger: I wish I knew that most people come back around and that things blow over. I think when I was younger and I'd experienced conflict or a breakup or something that didn't go my way, I'd assume I'd never talk to that person I was in disagreement with again, or that when something ended, it was over forever. And what I've found is that the people worth having in your life are forgiving and that everybody makes mistakes. I held myself to this unrealistic standard of perfection, and no one is perfect. I wish I'd been able to internalize that sooner. And last but not least is me. So the best advice I've ever received came a little bit later than I would have liked in life, which was to not let fear stop me from doing what I love, and that the thought of doing something is almost always more terrifying than actually doing it. And that kind of ties into my biggest regret in life. So my biggest regret in life is not working harder earlier in life and not truly fighting for my dreams. I always wanted to be an actress, but I really let fear get in the way of that. I always told myself that it wasn't a broad enough industry for a woman who is multiracial and 6 feet tall. And even if that's true, I still wish I would have tried. So like I said, that's a big reason why I wish I would have gotten the advice I listed a little bit sooner in life. And something I wish I knew when I was younger is that everyone is insecure. From athletes to parents to your classmates and teammates, we're all insecure about something. I was always so paranoid and full of self-resentment for not being more secure in who I was, because from the outside it seemed everyone else had their shit together, but no one really does, at least not 100% of the time. And we're all struggling with something. That thought helps me not feel so alone. So yeah, there you have it. The best advice we've ever received, our biggest regrets in life, and things we wish we knew when we were younger. And I think a lot of them had common themes as far as not letting fear overtake you or overcome you. And I think as humans, it's okay to be fearful. I think that's natural. But like I said, working through that fear is what's going to help you grow and learn as a person. And it's going to take you a really, really long way in life. And also just forgive people, which is something that I really, really struggle with. I know a couple people had listed that. I think forgiveness is important. I think sometimes even if you didn't get an apology from someone, I think still forgiving them and moving on is important, because resentment and anger and hatred is really just hurting you in the end. And that's something that I try to work on every single day, because I don't take a lot of bullshit, and people have done me wrong over the years, and I've done other people wrong over the years. And I think at the end of the day, we're all just trying to figure it out. We're all trying to make it and be our best selves. So as long as you're continuously learning and growing from your mistakes, I think that's really important. But I really hope that you guys kind of took away a lot from this episode. And maybe if there was something that you've been scared to do, maybe now you'll have the courage to do it. Or maybe if, you felt like you burned a bridge with someone, maybe now you'll want to kind of try to mend that relationship so it's not too late. And I think it's important for us to reflect and really think about these things from time to time, and to just honestly to help ourselves and try to make the world a better place. And like what John said in the beginning of the episode was, if you want to change the world, change yourself. And I think we're capable of so much more than we think we are. And so yeah, constantly learn and grow. And if you guys have any answers to these questions that you feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear them. So you can either tweet me on Twitter at Anna Horford, or you can email horfordhappyhour@gmail.com. And like I said, I'd love to hear your responses, and I'd love to share some really good ones. So if you guys are willing, that would be great. So yeah, I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope that we can all reflect on this episode and try our best to go from here and do good in the world and be better people each and every day. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys again next week.